Today, hitting the streets, we're going to try out URSA. I'm on a mission today to find out how manageable this camera is. Now, I'm carrying, between camera, lens, battery and tripod, about 15 kilos. So I'm going to get out and shoot, grab loads of shots, and the real mission is just to see, is this the sort of thing I can run around with all day and shoot, or is it too heavy? It's obviously a production camera, which means it's designed for crews, for more than one person. Of course, a single person can operate this, so that's what I want to find out. How manageable is it really to work with? Okay, right on 4 o'clock. Here we are opposite the Houses of Parliament. Now this has been a very interesting day, very revealing what URSA is about. I would have walked about 2 miles with this today, and I obviously did that deliberately because I wanted to know, as I said at the beginning of this report, how manageable is URSA as a camera. Now it is a heavy camera, 7.5 kilos thereabouts before you put anything on it. By the time you get a lens, by the time you get a battery on it, the plate that sits underneath must be carrying 10 kilos or more, make that 15 with the tripod. Now, obviously that's not a light camera and there's so many options out there, but something about heavy cameras is actually quite nice. They do give back. They've got weight that you've got to use to work with it, and there's something when a lot of the cameras got a lot lighter, a lot of the camera guys out there, camera girls, they didn't like them. Even now you get camera people out there that don't want to use the lightweight cameras. They want to have something that's got a bit of weight. I appreciate what it's actually giving me. Obviously, the screen. This changes the way you shoot. I mean, really, you frame your images in a different way because you can see your images. There's no way on a screen that big, a little tiny 3-inch screen, that you can see exactly what's going on. And many times I've got back into the edit suite and I haven't noticed a detail. You're filming a shot, there's something in the background going on that you just didn't notice. Things that can actually ruin your shot. When you've got a screen as big as that, you get to see what's going on. Now, of course, filming with any screen in the sun can be quite difficult. I would say this one is better than most, but it's still not perfect. It's difficult, you know, to really see what you're doing when the sun's on that screen. I mean, we're in okay, I wouldn't say it's a grey day in London, but it's not a sunny day. It's not summer. So it's actually the middle of winter. We just got a day where it's not raining, which is quite nice. But yes, the screen, I love it. But I would get an EVF. I would not work without an EVF on this. Or I should say, I would work between the screen and the EVF, so I'd have the EVF for when I need it. But the screen I love. I think it's fantastic. I just need more. Beyond that, it's a simple camera to use. It is really easy. Of course, I know the Blackmagic cameras. I've been using them for a good 2 years. So I know how they work. And the actual operating system on this is the same as on the other cameras. I'm not saying there might not be a few details because it is URSA. Obviously, it does do more things than some of the other cameras do. For example, you've got your XLRs, which is absolutely essential. I really miss XLRs when I'm using the other Blackmagic cameras, but you know, you work with what you've got, and there are ways to make it work. In fact, we're recording on the Blackmagic 4K production camera right this moment while I'm talking about URSA, and I've got a radio mic here, and that's being fed directly into the production camera 4K. So you can certainly manage your audio on the other cameras if you go to the effort. One thing I'd love to test with this, Blackmagic make a shoulder rest that sits under the camera. Now, I don't actually have the shoulder rest to test, but it fits on below, and then you can go on the shoulder with URSA, and I have to say the weight on the shoulder feels great. I'm sure it will feel better if I've actually got the shoulder rest to work with, but I like it. What can I say? I think as a shoulder mounted camera, the weight, the balance, it's all there. It's nice. I like it a lot. But of course, once again, need the EVF, because there's no way that you're going to work with a screen like that while you're shooting off the shoulder. It's just not going to work. Handheld, would it work as a handheld camera? I actually think it could. I'm not saying it's the ideal way to work. It's certainly built for, you know, as a production camera. It's a heavier camera. You want to put it on a tripod. But, you know, I can manage that. You can see I'm holding it now. I'm not struggling. Yes, it's heavy, but it's manageable. And while we talk about mounting this camera, you need a substantial tripod to actually hold it. Now that doesn't look that substantial. This is the only 75mm tripod I've ever known of that's designed to hold a substantial amount of weight. It's an older one, Sockler Video 14, the second edition of the Video 14 range, and that, believe it or not, will hold 30 pounds. That's what it's rated at. So URSA is about 10 kilos. I don't know what it equals in pounds. I'm a metric metric is what I grew up with. But whatever the case, this will hold something as heavy as URSA. So look around at what tripods are out there. You'll probably find you don't need the world's heaviest tripod. There are options. And it's a big deal because when you're running around carrying URSA, okay, so get the camera off and a tripod, and you got to move quick. I mean, I can manage that. You see what I've got there? It's not killing me. It's all right. So I like it. I like it a lot. But what I will say is I would not have this as my only camera because I like the shape, I like the size, I like the way it feels, I like the weight. Like I said, there's some advantages to having a heavier size camera to work with. But there are situations where you must run around really quick, and a bigger camera is going to be hard to do that with. So what I would do, I've given this some thought. For me, for this to work as a system, I'd have the Blackmagic production camera 4K and I'd have URSA. Now those two cameras put together will actually cost you less. Believe it or not, the two cameras together will cost you less than what some of the other camera manufacturers are charging for one camera. And between the heavier URSA and the lighter Blackmagic production camera 4K, which both use the same sensor, you're going to get matching pictures and you are going to have an amazing system for pretty much doing whatever you need to do. Because you've got a lightweight camera for running around with, a heavier camera for all the important stuff, the interviews, the crucial shots where you've got to be able to frame it right with that nice big screen. URSA is obviously still in development. I don't mean that it's not developed. It's certainly usable. It's fantastic. It gives you what you need. But there's certainly one thing that's not enabled that I desperately want, and I've heard other people comment about this, which is the phantom power. That's still to be enabled. But I don't stress about that sort of thing because we've been here before. The Blackmagic cameras, and not just Blackmagic, other camera manufacturers as well. When the cameras come out, not every feature is always enabled. It's annoying. We'd love to have it all perfect from when it appears, but it's not the way it works. But let's look at the history of what's gone on. The Blackmagic 4K production camera, when that came out, you couldn't shoot RAW on it. Still needed to be enabled. Blackmagic enabled it. It came out in the firmware update. The Pocket Cinema camera, same thing. Didn't shoot RAW when it first came out. Didn't take that long. Blackmagic enabled it. I feel very confident that they will get there. They will enable the phantom power. It's just something that's not there yet. High frame rates, shoots up to 80 frames a second. I haven't even tested that yet. Hopefully I'll get to test it before I actually have to hand this back, which is actually a day and a half from now. I've literally had it for about 2 days. I played with it, I checked it out. This is the first major time I've been out and about shooting with it to see what I can get. So I've got another day tomorrow, most of which I'm actually driving. But if I get time, I'll shoot off a bit more, try and do some high frame rate stuff. I think this is a great camera. If you're prepared to work for your shots, which you're going to have to do anyway no matter what camera you're using, but in terms of the size and the weight, if you can manage that and really use it to your advantage, you can do magic with this. I'm very much looking forward to getting back, seeing the footage. Part of this test, really the main thing about this test, as I said at the beginning, was to actually see, can I run around with URSA and do what I need to do and cover a substantial distance on my feet while carrying the gear to actually achieve the results, and I feel that I have. Obviously I know more when I've seen the pictures. So Blackmagic have given us an entire range of cameras to work with, all the way from the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, the Cinema camera 2.5K, production camera 4K, and also URSA. And let's not forget the studio camera. The two studio cameras, they've got the HD one and the 4K camera. Now hopefully I'll get to test those coming up quite soon. Now, one final point, and this is possibly the most exciting thing of all. URSA is a camera, as I said, which is still developing. Now, as has been widely publicized, if you take out these 4 Allen key screws. If you get an Allen key in there and undo all those, you can take the sensor out. I'm not going to do that. There's no way in a million years I'm going to try that on a camera that's on loan. But the exciting thing is that, who knows, give it another year, give it 6 months or however long it takes. Blackmagic may make another sensor or more available. And if they bring out another sensor with better low light performance, perhaps, you know, a more high-end sensor. I mean, the whole camera is about £3,500 ex-VAT. That's for the EF model, and then there's a PL mount model as well. If they bring out a much better sensor, it could propel this camera light years ahead of where it is now. Now it's already very good. But obviously, we want the best apps possible, and as technology gets better and more options are available in terms of sensors on the market, we don't know where this is going to go. So I'm very excited about that. I also like the idea of putting other sensors in, like from the 2.5K camera, from the pocket cinema camera. So you can do exactly what I said before. You could have, I was mentioning the 4K camera as a second camera for running around with. You may want a whole production shot on the pocket cinema camera and use this to match, or you may want to use the 2.5K camera. So the interchangeable sensor is a very exciting concept. We just got to wait and see where it goes. All right, I got to start my walk back before it gets dark. It's very bloody cold in London today, and I'm going to get going and hopefully get back before I freeze and, you know, see how I feel at the end of the next 2-mile walk. Great, I'll catch you all later. I made it.